When is a circuit tracks not a circuit tracks? When it's the drummer for a 60s supergroup. Hi kids, in today's half-assed tutorial we're going to be looking at creating patterns that feel like a 60s or 70s rock psychedelic jam band, and we're only going to be using kicks and snares. We're also going to be looking at something that you can do with the circuit tracks which you can't do with the samples, and it's one of the reasons why I really like the tracks. But before I start, I'm going to tell you why I like programming beats in this way. To be honest, I think I was always a bit of an old fart. At school, when all the kids were listening to Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, Pet Shop Boys, Erasure, all of those great synth pop type bands, I was stuck in the 60s and 70s listening to a lot of old rock bands, which is probably why I never quite understood 80s music. So British 60s and 70s hippie rock freak bands have had a huge influence on the music I make, probably more than I realised. From their riffs to the beats they produce, I think it permeates a part of my music making. And if you want to make beats like that, first of all, you need to analyse a little bit about what the drummers are doing. So the first thing to notice, besides Mr. Moon's wonderful expression, an expression which I emulate every time I pick up a pair of drumsticks and have a go at drumming, is that although the groove is the same and has the same feel throughout it, every bar is slightly different. At the end of every second bar, there's a little fill that goes around the kit, something to accentuate the end of that second bar. This is something we can easily emulate on the samples and the tracks using ghost notes, probabilities and flams. If you're not sure what a ghost note is, then have a look at the video that's linked up where I explain them in a bit more detail. First of all, we need to create a 2-bar loop, and the two instruments do this quite differently. On the tracks, it's really easy. You just press the button which flips you between steps 1 to 16 and 17 to 32. And depending upon what colour that button is, that tells you whether you're on the first bar or the second bar. On the samples, you need to press the scale setup by pressing function and the page button. And then make sure that that pattern is set to be 32 steps. To create a fill, we cluster a load of notes around the end of the second bar, and then we use probability and velocity just to tweak them until they come in and give us a little extra fill at the end of that bar. We don't need to stick to the funky ghost notes that we saw in the previous video. And then we use velocity and probability just to tweak them until they come in and give us a little extra fill. To make the flams, or those little tight rolls that drummers make by bouncing the stick off the skin, we have to do things slightly differently on both machines. On the tracks, you simply press the gate button. That gives you access to micro steps for each step, and then you just select the extra micro steps that you want. On the samples you need to work a little bit harder. Pick the step with the ghost notes and the probability which you want to add a flam to, and keep it held down while you edit the parameters. You press the loop button and then tweak the sample length parameter until you've got that nice little roll, the 2 beats bouncing after each other. We are not done yet though. Well, the samples is done. That's as far as you can go with that technique on this machine. Although you could create a further fill at the end of a 4-bar loop. But with the tracks we can do something a little bit extra special. I'd like to have a listen to Mitch Mitchell for a moment. Mitch Mitchell was a bit different to Keith Moon. He came from a jazz background, and as such he elevated the Jimi Hendrix experience to yet another level, and that's one of the reasons why that band was so astoundingly good. It wasn't just Jimi Hendrix guitar playing, it was the whole band together. Not only is there variation on every other bar, at the end of every phrase or section Mitch puts in a bar which steps out of the groove altogether. Luckily for us, with a bit of clever programming and the track's special psychedelic rock supergroup 1-bar fill button. What do you mean that's not its official name? Didn't everybody? Just me then? Oh well. Whatever it's called, we can make it happen with this button. The secret is that we need to spread this loop over 3 pattern slots. So the first pattern slot is a simple 2-bar loop with a fill variation at the end. The second pattern slot is 1 bar, but a bit more simplistic and sticking to the groove a little bit more. The third pattern block, the last one that we program in, is simply a duplicate of the previous pattern block, but with the random button pressed. When you play all 3 together, you get a 4-bar loop where the last bar has a very free and open, almost free jazz fill occurring. psychedelic rock supergroup 1-bar fill button. This is just a jumping off point, and there is so much more you can do with this idea. Oh, and incidentally, a quick question for you, just to see if you think in the same way as I do to some degree. Can any of you work out why I haven't included cymbals on these loops? I mean, I quite like sample breaks to use, and there you have the drums and the cymbals in there. But there's a reason why I haven't used them. I'd be interested to hear what you think in the comments below. If you're here at this point, you need to subscribe because you genuinely like half-arsed tutorials. If you've enjoyed it and you found it useful, please press the like button because that will help other people find this. And why shouldn't they? Talking of which, as they say at the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation, share and enjoy. See you on the next one, kids. Bye.